When the Coatl first came out, a strat I immediately wanted to try was an invisible dino attack. I mean, think about how much fun it would be to stealth an entire Jurassic Park up to an opponent's battle line without them being able to do a damn thing about it. It's like Indominus Rex with superpowers. But I never got around to it until today. We call this strat Crouching Coatl Hidden Dread Saurian, and could not have come at a more opportune time because we're facing down a very range-focused Tomb King's army through Shabti Great Bows, Bone Giants, and the Blessing of Asaf from one High Queen Khalida. Lizardmen army has 4 important units here: the Coatl overhead, the Dread Saurian, the Life Slun supporting them both, and the Legion of Shakwasaurus spears. And the Coatl has an obvious role to play in a scenario like this one. Using its Master of the Sacred Places ability, it will stalk that Dread Saurian across the snowy tundra and hopefully into a position where can maybe chow down on some boners. Chain Lightning and Uranus Thunderbolt are nice, I guess, but they are kind of incidental to what the dragon bird thing that we're flying with here is trying to accomplish. And the Dread Saurian also has a clearly defined role, but arguably a more difficult job. It has to hard carry the entire army, essentially. It will have to wade in and demolish a huge section of the enemy force, because without it, this Lizardman build simply does not have a lot of teeth. If the Dread Saurian gets sniped out, this battle is going to be over very quickly. To prevent that from happening, of course, there's a Slann Mage Priest of the Lore of Life with Earthblood, Regrowth, and Shield of the Old Ones in case the incoming focus fire proves a little bit too hot to handle. And he also has Banishment and Aura of Coatl because those are useful abilities. Then we have the Legion of Shakwa, which always accompanies Dread Saurians and Mage Priest because their shield ability gives 40% missile resist in an AoE, quite good for keeping high-value monsters and mages alive. Other than that, though, it's just Saurus and Skinks, no Cav, no Pterodons, not a ton of maneuverability, just legions of infantry with that patented burnt orange color scheme of Tlaqua. I will say that is a very stylish look, maybe my favorite Lizardman color scheme in the game. On the other side, we have the Tomb Kings. They have a Net of Amentok caster, just Net, which makes sense if you're going for a Khalida-themed ranged army, 2 Ushabti Great Bows, including the Chosen of the Gods with their Splinter Shot. They'll have plenty of shielded swords to break this battle, and in the rear, a Casket of Souls, the Roomba of Doom, accompanied by the Eyes in the Desert Sepulchral Stalkers, a fantastic backline sweeper unit. You can wreck targets from range with their armor-piercing missiles and force opponents to charge into their halberds. High Queen Khalida is leading the army, kind of a slithering juxtaposition, and that Blessing of Asaf is a small AoE buff for her ranged troops, but mounted on her Necro Serpent, she wants to be in the thick of the action, so either way, you're losing some of her utility, and she's also buffing up a Bone Giant, alongside the Ushabti, quite a large threat to both the Coatl and the Dread Saurian, particularly if either one of them gets netted in place, and that will be the linchpin of this Tomb King's build. Get that Lich Priest out in front of the army, net down a big target, have everything focus fire on it, and try to burst through all that healing and that bubble of Nope ward save. So the Tomb Kings have a clear-cut ranged advantage here, and they're going to push that to its fullest. Basically move up those Skeleton Legions, get them to block up the charges of the Saurus, slow them down, and focus fire on either the Dread Saurian or the Coatl. For now, the Dread Saurian is visible. Those Skeleton Horsemen doing their best to give their lives and try to scout out what's hiding under the Stalk Aura of that Coatl, and they have figured out a Dread Saurian is there, but for now, the focus fire is not going his way. Instead, it's going towards the Slann Mage Priest. Legion of Shakwa have popped their shield, and that's a 40% missile resist going the way of the Slann Mage Priest and the Dread Saurian. But as the Coatl moves up, Shield of the Old One's going down preemptively because you know that focus fire is about to come in. Whenever that Net of Amentok hits a target, that means all the range firepower will be going the way of that monster, and the Coatl is a logical unit to try to get off the field early. Bone Giant firing in, both Ushabti firing in, and already the Feathered Serpent has dropped to half HP, which means the Dread Saurian has got to start picking up some serious slack. He's into the Skeleton Legions. Nice thing about 750 weapon strength, 500 of it AP, you can chunk through a massive section of an army quite quickly. It's not just the weapon strength. The AoE attacks on the Dread Saurian are massive. It can kill 12, 15 models an attack, especially against some of the lower tier infantry in the game. So he's busting through the center while the Coatl gets to safer ground and has an Overcast Regrowth sent its way. Only way to get it back into the fight after that much withering focus fire. Skeleton Legions moving up on the right flank to stuff up this Saurus advance. Casket of Souls has wreaked a terrible toll in and amongst them. Dread Saurian pushing through by itself, which is a bit dangerous, but it's necessary. There is plenty of healing. There are plenty of ward saves to go the way of the big monsters, so Lizardmen are saying, we need those range troops silenced yesterday. Make those Ushabti and Bone Giant stop firing. Hasn't quite happened yet. Arcane Bodkins the size of a Volvo still ripping towards the Flying Serpent, which is being quite intelligent in its approach. Tired of getting shot, moving into the forest for now, and it'll use that cover until it's in a better position to fight. Let the largest predator in Warhammer Fantasy face tank Khalida and her serpents for now. Give the Saurus more time to close the gap. Give the Slann Mage Priest time to get into the middle of this engagement alongside the Legion of Shakwa and start healing everything. So, Dread Saurian still in okay shape. Overcast Earthblood going its way at the moment. And a Banishment bouncing off some Skeleton Horsemen. Not a very good cast, but not in lots of cast Vortexes, Chain Lightnings, or Uranus Thunderbolts at anyway on this battlefield. Most of the Skeleton Spearmen are already dead, and infantry is certainly not the focus of this Khalida build. Ushabti summon in the middle of all that infantry, on top of the Legion of Shakwa and the Dread Saurian, just trying to buy a little bit more time for the Bone Giant and Ushabti to fire. They should probably be retreating right now. They're still a little bit too close to the front line. Shielded the old ones with a 20% ward save and 8 leadership going down. While the Coatl decided to get real cheeky, tried to cast a Uranus Thunderbolt on the Casket of Souls. Did absolutely nothing. About 80 to 100 damage on single entities. Good to know. Piercing Bolts of Burning and some of those other bombardment spells can actually do a lot to single targets, but apparently Uranus Thunderbolt does not, or at least not to Casket of Souls. Hit it dead on and did essentially no damage. The Dread Saurian has been skewered alive by these Ushabti. Even with the shield of the old ones popped and all the healing going its way, it has not been enough. Dread Saurian just routed off, and now that the Saurus have made it into melee with the Chosen of the Gods, they can at least put some pressure on them and prevent them from firing for a little bit. But that is not the situation Lizardmen want to find themselves midway through a battle with the Dread Saurian routing off, having taken a lot of damage from Ushabti Great Bows, and with the Coatl being hunted down by the Eyes in the Desert and Khalida. Did manage to take off back into the air, and the Net of Amentok Lich Priest looks like it's about to crumble out. Lizardmen have taken a lot of damage on some of their most important troops, and it's a good thing they have a Slann Mage Priest of the Lore of Life, because if they didn't, this battle might already be over. Take a look at those armor-piercing shots from the Eyes in the Desert on the flank. This is why I love that unit as a backline sweeper. They are so versatile. They have so many ways they can impact the battlefield. It's not just the fact that they can force you into melee with their bonus for large halberds, and they do have a ton of mass, and that poison makes it very difficult for monsters, but they can also shoot them down from range too, and they're buffed up by the Blessing of Asaf from Khalida, so when they're rolling together, very dangerous troop choice for sure, and they're definitely making their presence felt at the moment. Dread Saurian has returned with about 1/3 health left. Coatl down past half HP as well, casting some piercing bolts of blue lightning towards the opposition, and the Dread Saurian should be able to finish off the Skeleton Horsemen in about 3 attacks flat. The Blowpipe and Howdah up top certainly helping that out as well, but yeah, Nehekora Horsemen, Skeleton Horsemen, all the bony boys on the Nehekaran side of things, they just have no chance against a monster of that caliber, but it's providing more time for these Ushabti to fire in. And the Chosen of the Gods don't quite have that single entity killing potential that the regular Great Bows do. Because of that split shot, they are more effective against infantry. But tell that to the Coatl, tell that to the Dread Saurian, who have certainly felt some detrimental effects from those arrows piercing their thick hides. Even the Bone Giant, the Necrolith Colossi, wading into melee and throwing some right hooks and stiff jabs, but now he's up against the Dread Saurian, who's returned to the fold. Bubble of Nope going down. That's a 20% ward save on a monster that still has close to 5,000 HP. Cold-blooded, tethering his leadership, keeping him in the fight for now, and this is huge. This is where that Dread Saurian could get a ton of value back, chomping on a big-ass monster. But Slann Mage Priest is in a precarious position as well. Khalida is on the hunt, and leadership is dropping low. Coatl can come in and zone him out, but not sure that will be enough. The Feathered Serpent can't beat Khalida in a straight-up fight either, especially now the Skeleton Horsemen are coming in. And look at that play. full surround off on the Feathered Serpent, and that will give Khalida the space she needs to chase after the Slan Mage Priest and probably route him off the map for good. While that happens, Dread Saurian happily munching down on the Necrolith Colossi. A couple more attacks might be able to make that statue crumble out for good. And both sides using some important units here at the midway stage of the battle. Eyes in the Desert disappearing into the snows. Coatl finished them off. Legion of Shakwa looking quite healthy at the moment, and that might be one of the most important units for the Lizardmen to keep on the field now, because it's pretty much just constructs. It's a handful of Skeleton Spearmen left that just got hit by Chain Lightning in the background, but the rest is all large targets. It's the Necrolith Colossi, Khalida, few Skeleton Horsemen, but mostly Ushabti remaining. Dread Saurian surrounded by the Bone Giant on one side and High Queen Khalida on the other, hit by the curse now. Everything on Lizardman's side just got hit by High Queen Khalida's curse. The Necro Serpent perhaps caught out. If the Coatl can tie her down long enough for the Legion of Shakwa to get a full surround, Khalida would not be able to survive in a fight like that for very long. Necrolith Colossi has begun that long, slow degradation into crumbling territory. Might not be around for too much longer, but for now still imbuing that terror in and amongst the Saurus as best it can. Khalida is on the move, hunting for the routing Dread Saurian, and she certainly has the mobility to do so. Now the Coatl has a choice. Go back and kill off the Bone Giant, or go after the High Queen herself. Meanwhile, Saurus chasing down the Chosen of the Gods, Ushabti. Not going to be able to catch them. They're a little bit too fast for the Lizardmen infantry, and more Ushabti able to finish off this ragtag band of Saurus here. Kopashes and a couple point-blank volleys should be more than enough to finish off these Saurus, and indeed they are routing. Balance War is in favor of the Children of the Old Ones right now. Bone Giant landed a shot on the Coatl before it closed into melee. It's now down to 300 HP on the Necrolith Colossi, and one more lightning attack should finish it off. Majestic. There's no other way to put it, man. Bone Giant is donezo. Big loss for the Tomb Kingers at this point in the battle. The trade-off, though, is that the Children of the Old Ones will lose their Dread Saurian. They have no unit that can now prevent Khalida from hunting it to the edges of the map. So, both big monsters are gone. Coatl is still alive, but it's looked better. Not very healthy, and it'll be even less healthy now that the Ushabti managed to get a last-second volley off before the Saurus closed into melee. Very painful stuff. Coatl's down to about 1/10 health now, and with the Saurus, they should be able to finish off these Ushabti, but it's gonna be a grind. They have half of their health left, and now the Chosen of the Gods are getting running volleys as they move away from the Saurus in the background. So Tomb Kings are far from out of this one at the moment, and the Bounce Brother will swing back even further once that Dread Saurian is dead. In fact, I think it already has been killed off. So Khalida slowly making her way back. She has a lot of ground to cover. Coatl only has 681 health left, and Chosen of the Gods certainly aren't bad in melee, but can they beat half-strength unit of Legion of Shakwa, all these Skinks and Saurus? Probably not. So what they need to do is just buy time. Buy time for Khalida to make her way back and try to perform some kind of miracle. They don't have to cut through all this infantry. They just have to manipulate leadership enough to cause some chain routes. And that's definitely a possibility, especially if that Coatl goes down and pushes that army losses bar a little bit more towards the Tomb King's favor. That is a lot of infantry for them to deal with, though, and the Chosen of the Gods just crumbled out completely. That's a big loss. But the Coatl might go down here to the Ushabti Great Bows in melee. Not something you see very often, but it has a big hitbox, and as it spews its lightning, well, those janky animations aren't doing it any favors. Carried into the middle of the Ushabti formation, routed off, but not killed, and not shattered. And now all the Ushabti are dead, and even with Venom Wave, which Khalida did not bring this battle, the wave clear ability, she'd have an exceedingly difficult time beating this many Saurus, especially when the Legion of Shakwa are nearby, and they're relatively healthy, but she doesn't have Venom Wave, so she has no wave clear here, and even with Fear, it certainly will not be enough to cause a chain rout and win this game. She'll be dragged down by a bunch of angry spears, and the infantry will carry the day for the Lizardmen after the Dread Saurian and Coatl put in some serious work. Very interesting game. Some really interesting plays there. Let's take a look at the unit values and see what could have been done different. So, Dread Saurian, MVP for sure. A lot of that came down to the healing that got thrown its way and the Bubble of Nope ward saves. The slotted Mage Priest certainly can take some of that credit. But 136 kills, 3 chevrons earned, and 3,200 damage value on the Dread Saurian is fantastic, man. Take a look at that. 3,200. 21,000 damage dealt. Coatl didn't do as much in terms of damage value, but I'd say in terms of the utility it brought to this battlefield, certainly worth bringing. It's a lot to invest in 2 monsters, I'm not gonna lie, and I would have liked to have seen a little bit more killing power out of the Feathered Serpent in this one, but I mean, it really wasn't up against the targets it would love to be. It can do a good job of beating up on Ushabti if it's a little bit healthier, but it just face tanked a lot of the focus fire from all of Khalida's range troops and gave the Dread Saurian the space it needed to get in and just rip up that Tomb King's army. Literally killed a fourth of their army by itself. Bone Giant, Casket of Souls, Sepulchral Stalkers, Ushabti. Combine that all with Net. They certainly did a lot of work there. There's some nice damage values across the board for the Tomb Kings, but it's interesting to see. And I wasn't expecting to see a full range focused build from the Tomb Kings here, but I was very happy they brought one because it's cool to see what happens when the Dread Saurian matches up against that. Usually, when it faces down that much artillery, that much focus fire, it kind of just dies, right? It gets skewered. It has a massive hitbox. It can't survive all that burst damage, and even with all the healing that went its way, it still had some issues with that. But if it can get into melee unscathed like it did this battle, in large part due to the Coatl taking all of that focus fire on its feathered wings, then you get a really interesting game where the Dread Saurian can put the team on its back and carry you to victory. And that's kind of what I was hoping for here. Worked out great, and I think the investments I poured into it definitely paid off. Hope you guys enjoyed. See you next time. Peace out.